All right, let's get right into it. You know, when we think about caring for someone with an illness like ALS, our minds usually jump to the physical side of things. But there's this whole other layer underneath, a complex emotional ecosystem. And that's what we're talking about today, how to protect that ecosystem. And this quote right here, it's really the heart of the matter. Mental health isn't just something that exists inside one person's head. It's more like a current, you know? It flows back and forth between the caregiver and the person they're looking after. It's in the tone of voice, the level of stress in the room, the whole house feels it. So this leads to a really crucial question. If the caregiver is the heart of that ecosystem, what happens when they get overwhelmed? When that central support starts to weaken, the entire emotional environment is at risk, and that's the problem we're going to unpack. To really understand this, we have to look at the nature of the burden itself. It's not just about the late nights or the physical tasks. It's this invisible weight, this constant, nonstop mental and emotional load that caregivers are carrying around all day. This is what we call cognitive overload. And what's so interesting is that this often hits first, way before the physical exhaustion even sets in. Think of it like a silent erosion of your emotional stability. It's the result of trying to juggle a million tiny details in your head at once. It's just completely and utterly draining. So when that cognitive overload and all that emotional strain just keep building and building, the caregiver's foundation, it really starts to crack. And this leads to four major points of failure that can destabilize, well, everything. And here they are. You've got that crushing cognitive overload we just talked about. Then there's the slow, creeping emotional burnout. You have the total logistical chaos of just trying to get a break. And finally, this really deep and profound sense of isolation. Any one of these is a huge threat, but when they happen together, they can be absolutely devastating. Okay, so how do we start to fix this? Well, this is where the idea of digital scaffolding comes into play. And the point here isn't to add more technology or more tasks to your plate. No, it's about using tech strategically to build a support structure, a scaffold, that directly shores up those four cracks in the foundation. First up, that cognitive overload. The solution here is actually pretty straightforward. Instead of trying to keep every single appointment, every medication, every little detail in your head, you just offload it. You move all that mental labor onto a shared digital system. And here's what that actually looks like in real life. Shared calendars mean everyone's on the same page, no more confusion. Task lists take it clear who's doing what. Automated reminders, they free up so much precious brain space. And just on a psychological level, seeing a week laid out clearly visually, it creates this sense of predictability, which is a really powerful antidote to anxiety. All right, let's tackle that second point of failure, emotional burnout. This one is so tricky because it just sneaks up on you, right? The solution isn't about trying to eliminate stress. That's impossible. It's about making the pattern of that stress visible so you can see it coming before it becomes a full-blown crisis. And this is the whole idea right here. What is visible can be addressed. So often, caregivers just feel like they have to push through, telling themselves they're fine. But when a simple tracking app or a wearable shows you real data, like your sleep is suffering or your stress markers are up, it validates how you feel. It turns that vague sense of being worn out into concrete info you can actually do something about. And now for the third crack, the absolute chaos of trying to get a break, what we call respite. Let's be clear, respite is not a luxury. It is essential maintenance. But honestly, the logistical nightmare of coordinating help can be so exhausting that a lot of caregivers just give up. And that's where technology can come in and just streamline the whole thing. Think about it. Instead of sending dozens of texts and making endless phone calls just to get someone to cover for a couple of hours, these platforms put everything in one single place. One post, one schedule. It takes what was a logistical nightmare and turns it into a totally manageable task. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most painful point of failure, that profound sense of isolation. I mean, caregiving can be an unbelievably lonely journey. The solution is connection. But specifically, it's about connecting with other people who get it because they're walking the exact same path. This is what makes peer networks so incredibly powerful. They give you something that even the most well-meaning friends and family can't. They give you a space where you don't have to be the strong one. You can just be tired or frustrated or sad and be completely understood without any judgment. That kind of validation, it's a lifeline.
So we've looked at how technology can patch up these four big cracks, but the impact is actually so much bigger than that. When you support the caregiver, it's not an isolated act. It creates this amazing positive ripple effect that can change the entire emotional climate of the home.
And you can see that chain reaction perfectly here. The caregiver uses the tech, right? So their cognitive load gets lighter and their stress goes down. When their stress drops, their patience goes up and their communication just softens. And what's the result? The entire emotional environment stabilizes for everyone, including, and this is so important, the person receiving the care. It's all connected.
Now, we have to be realistic here. Technology is not some kind of magic wand. And if we're not careful, it can actually add to the burden. The whole goal has to be using these tools to create more space for human connection, not to replace it.
So here's the bottom line. The right tech reduces friction in your life. The wrong tech adds to it. If you're suddenly juggling 5 different apps that don't even talk to each other and they're buzzing with notifications all day, well, that's not scaffolding. That's just more noise. The goal is always, always simplification and clarity.
And that leads us to maybe the single most important takeaway from all of this. We have to be crystal clear about what technology can and cannot do. It does not create love. It can't.
But, and this is everything, it can create the space for love to survive, for love to remain intact. By taking on the logistics, by absorbing some of that cognitive weight, and by connecting us to support, it frees up the emotional energy we need for that genuine human connection.
And really, when you think about the long, long marathon of caregiving, protecting that precious space for connection, for patience, for love, what could possibly be more important than that?